First, just to tell you all, thank you for your support and your love. And this has been a hard week, and I thank you all for your prayers that you've sent out to our family. And this church means more to me than I could ever tell you. It's my family here, and I love each and every one of you. And you all have a big part in the success that we had in South Sudan and Africa. And I would encourage you, if you ever have the opportunity at all, to take it to go on a foreign mission trip, because your life will never be the same again. I just wanted to read a couple of verses, because Christ has commanded us to love not just our families, but everybody. In Ephesians 5:2, he said, "And walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave up himself as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." And then in 1 John, he tells us, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us." I just read that, didn't I? I'm sorry. That's right. Why is this not? First John 3, verse 16 says, "This is how we know what love is." And that is so true, because that Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. And then if you ever decide you're going to go on even a local domestic mission trip or a foreign mission trip, you really start to feel that love for those people. They affect you, even though you think that you're going there to give them a blessing. The blessing that you receive from being there is far greater than the blessing you're giving them. And Jesus commands us that he says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." And he'll be with us whether we're here or whether we're in the jungles of Africa. I'm a nurse, so I typically do a medical mission trip. But the goal of that mission trip is not to give them medical care. The goal is to present the gospel to them, because while we are seeing the patients and they're waiting for their medication or they're waiting to see us, then there's the local missionaries, and then sometimes we'll have people that go with us that evangelize the people while we're waiting. So that's how we bring the love of Christ to them. And if you can change their spiritual condition, that will affect their economic condition, that'll affect their home life, it affects everything. So you make a much bigger impact trying to bring the love of Christ to them than just giving them medicine for a month. So that's the goal of what we do. I usually go with Macedonian Missionary Service. They're based in Somerset, Kentucky, and they've got 3 sponsoring churches that are the sending church, I guess, for Macedonian Missionary Service. One is Hopewell, right up here in Cunningham. One is a church in California, and there's a church in Florida. If you wanted to do something like this, there's a schedule of what's going on. They also do building missions. They go lots of places. There's a team that goes and does Vacation Bible School with kids. They do that all over the world. The building is usually just in the United States or Mexico, something that's on this plot of land. You can go ahead and start pause on this one, Charles. This is MAF. This is called Missionary Aviation Federation. It is a organization that's based in South Sudan or in Africa. And what they do is they fly missionaries from one place to another, or groups from one place to another. So that's how we flew into Capoeira, South Sudan, and then we flew from there to a place called Nairous. And we flew, go ahead, Charles, on these little, I call them puddle jumper planes. There were two of them that took us, our luggage and the planes, and it took about, I don't know, maybe an hour flight on these planes to get there. They seat about 8 people, 10 people. That's inside the plane. This is at the hotel that we stayed in, and hotel, I use that word loosely. There's an ostrich that just roamed around wild. And I'm going to have him just play these photos. If you have any that you have questions about, this is some of our group getting ready to go out for the day. We had 4, like 15-passenger vans that we went every day. This is the typical lodging that they live in a village. And in the time that we're there, it's the dry season, so it's very dry. And it's about, I don't know, maybe 110 degrees during the day. And it's about 95 at night. This was a small group, and there were only 3 people that were able to see patients. I usually see patients, but the people that were supposed to come with us and do the pharmacy ended up getting sick and were not able to go. So I worked in the pharmacy, which only left 3 people to see the patients. While we were there, we went to 5 different villages, and I'm going to tell you what those are. This is the kids there. A kid that's River's age, about 9, about River's size, would be responsible for being out in the, it's not a pasture, but it's just out in the open, away from the village, tending their goats or their sheep or their cows, and they're there by themselves. And you see kids that are as maybe 6 years old, and they carry their siblings on their back, like they will have a baby strapped to their back. Day 1, we went to a village called Nakaringomo Village. We saw 224 patients that day, and there were 13 professions of faith while we were there that day in that first village. This is their church service. They're very, very expressive people. While we were there that Sunday, they had a child dedication service. And you can tell that they're singing in their It's very unknown to me all the way around the world to be in a church that's preaching the gospel just like we do here, singing the same songs like we do here. Even though I've been there, getting out of the faith is the way it is. And it really is the way it is everywhere. There are churches just like this everywhere in the world, singing the same songs we do, praising God just like we do. On day 2, we went to a village called Kokoro Village. We saw 190 patients that day, and there were 30 professions of faith. On the 3rd day, Nakalioiti Village, we saw 163 patients, and there were 17 professions of faith that day. That right there is a termite mound, and they're everywhere. We were on our way to a village at night, and that what you see there in the background, go back to that one, Charles. The mountain is on fire off in the distance. This is, we were setting up, getting ready to have our work that day. The brush, it's because it's really, really dry. It's dry. And the trees, I don't know if any of you have seen Lion King. That's exactly the way it is in the place where the hyenas live. There's thorns on the trees. Stop on that one right there, Charles. There's thorns on all the trees about this long, and it's everywhere. This is just the group that they're sitting there waiting to get their medication. So they try to get under the shade, but most of the time they don't, and they're very used to the heat. Okay. Stop on this one. This little boy is go back to that one, 5 or 6 years old, and his belly is like that because he's had malaria, and it was untreated. So it's affected his spleen and his liver. They're enlarged, and that's why his belly is like that, and he probably will not live to be 10 years old. We treated a lot of patients for malaria. This is their typical dress. Most of the kids run around until they're probably 12 years old naked, or they just have a t-shirt on. That is the truck there in the background. We had to pack it. I don't know how many times I cringed at the one in front of me because I thought it was going to turn over. It was packed so high. There were lots of places that on the way from where we stayed at night to the next village, we had to get out and shovel the road because you couldn't get by, and it was rough as a understatement. That's the trees. That's the way it all looks, and those are the that are on them. We stopped at one place. You just get out. This is pretty typical of trying to get where we're going, and it's rough. Every morning and every evening, it took about at least an hour riding like that to get where we needed to go. They did not make us wear, typically when we're there, we have to, the women can't show their knees. They walk around with those shirts, but they can't show their knees, the church people. So most of the time we would have to wear, like I would wear scrubs, and I'd have to put a sarong around my pants to make it look like a dress. And they didn't make us do that, but I did have to wear pants, like I just wore scrubs every day. On the fourth day, we went to a Kami village. We saw 153 patients, and there was one profession of faith that day. But that profession of faith will probably have at least the same, if not more, impact than all of the others, because that one profession of faith was the priest of the Catholic Church that was there. He came, and he had his church members. It was real common. They would come and they would beat the people, the Baptist Christian members of the church, the men. And so the men were really afraid of him because he's very powerful. And when they finally started talking to him, and they talked to him, presented the gospel, and he got saved that day. So that will be a huge impact on the Baptist people there, because hopefully they're not going to get beat anymore. This little boy, stop on that one, Charles. You can go right there. He I think he's about 5. He had fallen into a fire, and you can see on his arm and wrist right there, he's got 3rd-degree burns there, and Martha is cleaning it. His hand, they said it happened a week ago, but that's probably not true because his hand was already contractured over. Burns and stuff like that are real common. They'll get infected, and a lot of times those kids or whoever, they will end up getting septic and not make it because it's extremely difficult to keep that clean. There's a well that some NGO has come and dug every so many miles or so, and that's where the village goes and gets their clean water. And clean is, if I drank it, I would get really, really sick. On the 5th day, we went to a Nakamita village. We saw 70 patients there, and there were 37 professions of faith. So in those 5 days, we saw 800 patients. That's 3 people seeing patients. They saw 800 people. We gave out 1,744 medications, and there were 107 total professions of faith, and that includes, I think it was either 7 or 9 that was saved on Sunday morning at the service when we were there. This young girl, you see that on her head? Go back to that previous one, Charles. When a young girl, women there are the property of the men, and and they are about as important, not quite as important as the dog. So the fathers sell their daughters off to men to be married, and the men usually have 7 or 8 wives. When a girl is old enough to take a, it's like a bucket, sort of like about the size of a 5-gallon gas can. When she's old enough or able to carry that, get water in it, and bring it back on her head, she's old enough to be married off. That doesn't matter if she's 12 or 22. She's old enough to be married off when she can do that. And though they're like that everywhere. Walking, it's very common. I don't know how they keep it balanced, but they do. In the villages, this right here is a scorpion. It was in my room one night. I picked my suitcase up, and it was underneath my suitcase. Go back to the one with the guy. This is Chris. He is a member of our team, and it reminded me of Absalom. He was walking under that tree, and his hair got caught in the thorns of the tree. We stopped to use the bathroom at one point, and you have to just, guys go to the right, women go to the left. And I was trying to maneuver my way through the thorns, and I was looking down to be sure I didn't step on one, and one caught me right in the eye. At first I thought it had punctured my eyeball, but it didn't. It just kind of ripped a hole in my eyelid. This is where they're just sitting out there having, they're presenting the gospel to them right there under that tent. And I don't know if you can see, hold on this one, Charles. The guy standing there, if you can see kind of behind it, it looks like a small little fence has been built in a circle. You can just kind of see the top of it. That's the Catholic Church. That's where they go to have their church. And there's a well about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away from that. Okay. All of the kids are really, they all want to all gather around you, and I had Snapchat would work on my phone without any Wi-Fi access. So I had the filters up, and it was making their faces look funny. So there's hundreds of them around you. And there was one young girl that came up, and I was teaching them how to do high fives. She had seen them all doing that. You do it. Cross your eyes. But when I raised my hand up for her to give me a high five, she cowered down and ducked down and ran because she thought I was going to hit her. Women being beaten there is an everyday occurrence. At the place that we stayed at night, usually about 9 or 10 o'clock, we would hear drums start playing at the village behind where we were staying. And then the first night, we could hear a woman being beaten and her wailing, and it went on till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it kind of circled around. That happened every single night. We could hear it. And I'm thinking in my mind, what can we do about that? And there's not really anything that we could do about that without getting killed ourselves. Because if we try to go interfere, that's not going to be a good thing. Are we back to the beginning? See if you can go through. There's a picture of me and a man that's really tall in kind of fancy clothes. There was a man that, just to kind of give you an idea of what they think of the women, how women are in their society. That's him. That's the priest of the Catholic Church. And he agreed to let me get my picture made with him, which was really a big deal because I'm female. And this man standing beside him right there is Ernie Hopper. Ernie is a Baptist missionary that's been in Africa. He lives in Kenya, but he comes to South Sudan really often and helps the missionary that we support there. Ernie has been in Kenya for, I don't know, probably 40 years and has devoted his whole life to taking the gospel to the people of Africa. we try to do, I try to do, I guess, about at least 2 trips a year. Right now, the team is in, I think they're in Mexico right now, and I couldn't go to that one, but if you guys would just please pray for us and that whole Macedonian Missionary Service, because they are dedicated to taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. And it's not an easy thing to do. South Sudan is probably one of the hardest trips. There's no air conditioning while you're there. When you go to bed at night, your mattress is 100 degrees. Said scorpions everywhere. You do it. I was sitting on my bed one night. I would have to take the sheet and just wet it and lay down on that in my underwear to get any relief from the heat. And I was laying on my bed one night counting up our papers of who we had seen and how many meds we gave, and I felt something crawling on my shoulder, and I looked down, and there was a roach the size of Texas crawling across my shoulder. And I started screaming, and trying to get off the bed and get away from the roach, I don't know what I did, but I caught my toenail on something and it ripped my toenail off. So now there's blood everywhere all in my room, and I go out and I go down and I knock on the door, and I asked Chris, I said, "Are you still up?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you come up? There's a scorpion in my room and my foot is bleeding." And so he came and killed the scorpion for me. But the people that on your team that you travel with, you have a bond with them that you just don't have with anybody else, because they know what it was like, they know what you did, they know what you went through. And I would do it every day. I would do it full time if I didn't have to pay bills. Yes, ma'am. No, there's a man, Leon Jasper, that was one of the founding fathers of Macedonian Missionary Service. And he used to always say, God puts the team together, because they just say, we're going, and we don't just choose, we're going to go to South Sudan. The missionary there has to invite us to come. So once they invite MacMed to come, then it's announced we're going to go to wherever, and it's usually about a year ahead of time. And then whoever signs up to go, pays the money to go, that's it. There is a core group that typically go on all of the trips, and we kind of mentor the people that don't. There was a lady that is probably 10 years older than me that did South Sudan as her first mission trip. I would not recommend that. She got really sick. And until you built up a little bit of immunity, you're going to get sick. And then that on top of the heat, she did not do really well, but I guess overall, I was really proud of the job that she did. Who has questions? Yes. We take with us NSAIDs, like ibuprofen, naproxen, take some Toradol, have some Toradol injections. We take antibiotics, primarily Flagyl, because there's a lot of STDs. We take Bactrim. There's a lot of UTIs because hygiene is a big, big problem. And then just amoxicillin, the normal common antibiotics. We do have some blood pressure meds. It's not really often that we'll start somebody on a blood pressure med, but if they are already on it, then we have it to give them, to let them do that. And we usually take some metformin. A month. And then we encourage them strongly to follow up. There's usually a clinic. South Sudan is a little bit hard for them to do. They are a 6-hour walk, because they don't have anything other than, some of them have a little motorcycle. But it's a 6-hour walk to the hospital. So all their babies are born in the village. So if there's a complication or whatever with that, nature's just gonna take its course, because they would have to walk 6 hours to get to the hospital. And the hospital that they would walk to, the only 2 laboratory tests they can do is whether you have TB and whether you have malaria. That's it. So hospital is really, I don't know that I would really call it a hospital. Mhm. You don't get it's not a vaccine. I had to, before we left, I've had a lot of vaccines, but I had to go get a typhoid vaccine boosted, and then you take malaria medication. You start it 7 days or 3 days before you leave, and then you take it while you're there, and then you take it. We took a lot of malaria meds. Typically, the hospitals will carry malaria medication, but it's a 6-hour walk, and they walk everywhere they go. No. They don't. They're not. They're not going to take that medicine. It has side effects. So, any other questions? We ate, the meat usually was goat, and then there was usually some sort of rice and some boiled eggs. That's pretty much every meal. So if there's one girl, Martha, that was cleaning that little boy. She usually pays for an extra suitcase and she takes food with her, but I'm not going to do that. I've got enough. If I didn't eat the whole time I was there, I'd be okay. So typically there are lots of the team. There's usually several of people on the team that get sick. So we take IV fluids, stuff to start an IV, and then our doctor is from Mexico, and there's drugs that are still available in Mexico that's not available in the States. And he usually brings that. It's something for nausea, stomach cramping, and it's extremely effective. I've been sick before and couldn't stand up, and he gave me a shot of that, and I was able to get home without any complications. Anybody else? Hey. I try to go at least twice a year. Sometimes I go 3 times a year, but we go to South Sudan. There is a place in Kenya called Turkana that we can go to, Mongolia, Romania, most all of the Central American countries, to Mexico. Yes, we have translators. Yes. The local, the missionary that's there will have, lots of them speak English, and I forgot their language. It's not Swahili, I can't remember. If I heard it, I know it, but I don't remember right now what it is. Now the kids, some of them will speak English, but not very many. When you're out in the village, if you're in the town, lots of the people will speak English. And then starting on, I think, day 3, there's a young man.
You do it. Cross your eyes.
The doctor's daughter, the doctor that goes with us, Dr. Hugo Malosi, his daughter is a dentist in Mexico, and she and her husband sponsored Thomas, who is one of the doctors there. I had a selfie with him, I think. Through medical school, and Thomas is fixing to graduate, so he will be a physician for these people. That's Thomas Lobai. That's Dr. Hugo. They let him sit up there with the pilot coming home. This is all the kids gathered around. We're doing the Snapchat filters, and that's just a Snapchat filter of the kids. The kids are, it's such a blessing because when you stop at the store, and store is just a little hut on the side of the road in nowhere, and none of the drinks are cold, you learn to love a hot Coke. But they all come up and they're screaming "Mata Mata," which means hi in their language. and they want to touch you, and they want to. One of the little girls, when I was standing there doing the Snapchat filters, she kept wanting to rub my skin. I guess she thought the white was going to rub off on her. But they're real fascinated with, like, my hair is different texture than theirs. They all want to touch that, and the kids do. Anybody else?
I have 4 or 5 for you.
Okay.
What is their primary religion there? I know you mentioned the
Catholic
Church.
and Islam. So when the first time that I ever went to South Sudan was in 2019. And John Wanyoni is the missionary there, and he is from Kenya. And when John was growing up, the tribal wars that were going on, they would come and take the kids from another tribe, and they would use those kids to go out and set off the landmines that they had put out. So all of John's siblings were taken that way. And then when he first got to South Sudan, it was fairly soon after the civil war of South Sudan separating from Sudan. He said the first thing that they had to do was clean up the bodies that were just left there to do that. So he started a church, and I think he has now been instrumental in getting, it's either 4 or 5 other Baptist churches throughout that region started. And they have like a school that they train the local pastors to be pastors of the churches.
James Sanders just came from Africa to teach other pastors. I don't know who he went through, but that's pretty neat. Y'all are kind of on the same timeline.
In Turkana, Eddie Williams is the missionary there in Turkana. Eddie is back in the States right now on deposition. They have established a Bible Institute that trains the local pastors, and I don't know, he's got several churches that they've established out there, and several of those are no longer missions. They've established as a church.
Yes, ma'am.
And support their own.
You're definitely in elephant and lion territory,
Now,
right?
because of the dry season, we didn't have to worry about lions and tigers and whatever, because they're gone on to where the green stuff is right now. But during the rainy season, that will be a migration through there, just like the Lion King.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Talking about Bibles, and we've seen several on a table there. I'm assuming they're all in their native tongue, right?
Yes. Now, Chris, the guy that I said reminded me of Absalom that got his hair caught in the tree, his church sent a lot of their solar-powered audio Bibles in their language. And as we gave them out, then they were talking about the next day at 10 o'clock at night, all of the villages sitting out listening to that at 10 o'clock.
And I guess last, Ms. Donna, you probably already covered it, is malaria the common sickness? I guess the number
Malaria, lots of respiratory problems because of the dust that's blowing around. Like every night, your ears are full of dirt and sand, your nose is full of dirt and sand, your eyes are full of dirt and sand, so all of the things from that. And then if there's viruses or bacteria or whatever in that dirt, and sometimes it blows around because they're not real good about hygiene. So they will just go, they don't have bathrooms, I don't know why they don't build outhouses, but they don't. So they just go out and use the bathroom. And then the flies get on that, and whatever that person has, it brings it back. And so, yes, respiratory diseases. TB is really bad. The AIDS, there's a lot of AIDS there. The incidence of AIDS is a lot higher.
Julie gets upset at ants, much less a scorpion in that. Do you see a lot of scorpion bites and things like that?
There was, most everybody there has been stung by a scorpion, and the missionary said the first time it happens, it's extremely painful. And I was just, by the grace of God, because it was underneath my suitcase, and I closed my suitcase and reached under it to pick it up. And when I did, it sticks its tail up in the air. But each time you get stung after that, it's a little less painful. And lots of times you're in the hospital with it.
Thank you, Ms. Donna.
That's another one of, that's the priest right there. When the, I got one, bought it from one of the men, and I meant to bring it and I forgot. It's a whip, and they make it from the tail of a bull, and they skin the tail, and then in the opening at the tail, part of the tail that's up closest to the bull, they take a stick and stick it down there so it's firm. And then it's just a leather whip that goes out from that, and they use that to drive their cows and to beat their women. And one of the things that's given to a man when he gets married, it's called a rongu, and it's a piece of wood. It's like a wooden club. It looks just like that. And the woman, when they get married, is taught, there's a special scream. If things get too violent, then she screams that scream, and he is come and dealt with. But it's still.
Push it so far, but just, wow.
But now, I was going to tell you a minute ago, there was a man that he sold his daughter for 20 cows to a man, and she didn't want to go. She was 16 years old. She didn't want to go, and he knew she didn't want to go, but like, I hate it for you. So he married her off to him, and 2 weeks later, she came home because I guess it was just too bad. And he speared her to death because she had disgraced him, his own 16-year-old daughter. Not when we were in the villages. You have to be smart. As I said, Brother Leon used to always tell us, a banana never gets peeled till it leaves the bunch. So you stay with the bunch. You don't ever go anywhere by yourself. 2 or 3 women aren't going to go somewhere by themselves. You always be sure you have a man with you, because women in that society don't have any rights, or you're just property. But we asked the people at the hotel in Capoeira if they would take us to a market, because we usually go there to get souvenirs or whatever. So they said, yeah, we'll take you. So we get in and we go down, and it was not the market that we wanted to go to. It was a street that was packed with people selling things that were just junky junk from China. And there were so many people, and I started to feel uncomfortable. One of the guys with us was his first mission trip, and the exchange rate there is 5,080 of their, they call them pounds, to our $1. So I changed $60, so you have a stack of money this tall. It's paper money. So Wally put his phone and a thing of money about this thick in his front pocket. Not a smart thing to do. We hadn't been there 5 minutes, and these 3 guys come up, and they all bump into him at the same time, and they took his phone and his money. Well, Wally grabs him when they did it and gets all upset, like a guy was like, you need to be smart here, because there's 5 of us and thousands of him. So he finally calmed down, and somebody that was standing there saw it happen and grabbed the money out of the guy's hand, but he never did get his phone back. So we were there, I don't know, less than 10 minutes, and we decided this is not too safe. So we went back, and then the next day they took us. We had some time before we had to go to the airport. So we went to another little market that's just local made sarongs and woodworking and stuff like that. That's local to the people there. But when we got there, Wally comes up, and the first thing he announces is, I've got tons of pounds. I'm ready to buy. It's like, you just got your phone stolen, so tell everybody you got tons of pounds. Anybody else? Hey. They don't. No, they hide it. They also practice female circumcision. And typically, what they'll do for that is, it usually happens around 12 years of age. But if they've got several daughters, they'll wait and do them all at the same time. And there's a woman that kind of works with the witch doctor that will do that, and it's just a knife, and it mutilates that area, is what it does. Anybody also that is not normal, they're picked on. It's like a curse. They see that as a curse. Anybody else? Yes, Chris. No, they don't have. They do not have that. They raise their crops in the rainy season, and it's something called millet, and it's raised from sorghum. They call it sorghum, and I guess if it would eventually give you molasses or sugar or whatever, but they harvest it when it can make a flour, and that's what they live on during the dry season. And they have acres and acres of it that they all do manually by hand. There's no machinery or anything. And then those little huts there that just have the legs? That's got storage in the top to keep animals from getting their millet that they've ground up and put up in there. And then they'll have chickens that they can kill, not many, but, and then they eat a lot of goat. But all of their growing is done in the rainy season. I think it's about 3 months. I'm not 100% sure. But along the roads that we went, a lot of them were just dry riverbeds. So if we were there in the rainy season, there's no way to get to where we needed to go because it's all, can't drive across that river. Or it's just mud. There's lots of places that you can look out, and it looks like lava rock. It's really black rock, and they said it's lava rock, but there are no active volcanoes in South Sudan. So it's from sometime way, way in the past that happened. Any others? Yes. They do. They do. No. All of the 5 villages that we went to it's the same language, they live the same, they have the same kind of homes. There's a culture. Now, a lot of it is surviving. All the kids want your water bottle, and if you give them one with water in it, you can tell they chug it down immediately. If you give them food, they eat it like a piranha because they're all malnourished because for lack of food. Because as you can see, there's not much water in the dry season. They have to do everything that they can do to prepare for the dry season and the rainy season. There is. Each village is going to have a chief. And the men will sit around. They have their spears on there, and they have feathers. It's very typical of what you see in the movies. Brittany, when she was 18 years old and graduated from high school, at Hopewell, they have a program for the kids called Discovery, and it is a national program. And if you made national recognition at least 3 of your years of the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, then they paid for you to go on a foreign mission trip. So as soon as she graduated from high school, she was 18 years old, she got on a plane all by herself and went to Costa Rica for, I don't know, about 8 days. 10 days? Yes. And they helped the missionary there. They did things like paint, but they want to go. River's just a little small at the moment. He would do okay, I think, in Central America, but not there. Somebody else had, yes, Chris. No, well, Chris brought some MREs. I did not take any extra food. They brought food to us each day, and it was usually goat or lots of chicken, and then rice. What else did I tell you? Eggs, boiled eggs in the morning, but that was every meal. We were there for 10 days. But now I say we were not actually working for 10 days because it's 2 days travel time to get there. You're actually in flight about 20 hours, and then it takes that long to get home as well. We had to, the flights that we originally booked, all of a sudden American Airlines canceled it. And so we ended up having to go to Chicago and overnight in Chicago and then fly to Ethiopia the next morning because we couldn't just change it because we had already chartered those MAF flights to get us from Capoeira to Naurus and can't change those. We'd already paid for those chartered flights on the little puddle jumper planes. So we had to get there at the time that we were supposed to get there. Anybody else? I thank you again for your support, your love, your prayers. Please keep them coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donna. Church, as she said, if you would like to go, we sponsor, you as a body sponsor our church missionaries and our body. $2,000 sponsorship, so if cost is a hinder, please keep that in mind. And again, thank you, as Ms. Donna said, for you as a church to support those willing to go. We will stand and be dismissed. Paul, I know mission works close to your heart. Do you mind dismissing us in a word of prayer, brother?